So it's finally time to officially celebrate hitting 10,000 subscribers. I just want to thank you guys so much for your support over the years. Some of you have been following me since 2012, give or take. So I appreciate all the support. Last month I asked you guys to submit questions on a specific video. You did that, and now we're going to go through and answer all of your questions. I am not going to say anyone's channel name out loud because I just don't want to butcher anybody's names, but I will list those on screen as well as your question. So let's get started. Question number 1, are you finally comfortable with this being your full-time job and not stressing as much? Some of you may not know this, but this is actually not my full-time job, and I put that in quotes because I am working way more than full-time hours, guys. I'm putting in about 300 hours a month. I work about 10 hours a day. And I do not take time off. Obviously, when I'm sick and things like that, I will take time off, but then I'll make that time up on another day. So some days I'll work 12 hours. And to be honest, I won't say most of the time, but I would say probably 20 to 30% of the time I'm working more than 10 hours a day. So while I'm working the full-time hours, or again, what I consider to be 2 full-time jobs and a part-time job, I am not even close to making even minimum wage in my country. And it's, it's disheartening at times because I put so much effort into bringing content to trophy hunters, and all I ask is a little bit of support on the back end, $5 a month or $10 a month or whatever. And currently I think, well, we're sitting at over 10,000 subscribers, and I think we have about 140 people, give or take, across YouTube memberships and Patreon. So to only have that much support out of 10,000 subscribers, like I said, it's pretty, it's disheartening, but I can't make anybody support. I give the content out for free, and that's the business model that I've chosen. So I'm not, not necessarily wanting sympathy or anything like that. I mean, I chose to be here. But I guess my logic is that there would be a lot of people that would want to support a content creator like me, who's basically rolling out the red carpet for these trophy hunts and trying to make them as efficient as possible and as easy as possible. And it's just not turning out to be the case. And I'm hoping for a big turnaround over the next year and a half. So as we go into 2026, we can have a lot more backing when it comes to our membership program. So we're going to be rolling out some things over the next few months that's going to kind of help us focus on the memberships and getting you guys more engaged and working on our rewards and a lot of other programs that we've got going on. And hopefully that will help us cross the hump and get our budget up a little bit fatter so I can continue to make content in 2026. And again, we're going to roll that stuff out later, and all that stuff will be explained. So, again, while I'm working those hours, guys, it's not a full-time job. I'm actually losing a lot of money by doing this every month, because when you factor in true value, guys, you have to factor in the money that you're making versus the money that you could make if you were doing something else. And when I left the job market many years ago to pursue this, I was making close to $50,000 a year. So if you just take $50,000 and multiply it by 12, like had I stayed with that company, you can see how much money I have not made by pursuing this venture here on YouTube. Now, obviously, when I started this, guys, I wasn't pursuing it necessarily as a business. I've only been doing that for the last, 5 years or so. So I don't want you to think it's taken that long to get to $800 a month, which is where we are right now with memberships. But it's cost me a lot of value on my end, right? Plus a lot of time. Again, there's a lot of mental gymnastics that you have to perform in your head to be able to do what I do, not just to get the guides up, but to listen to the criticism from family and friends who are telling you that you're wasting your time, telling you that you're blowing your entire, savings on keeping this YouTube thing alive. And, I have to worry about retirement and things like that. So it's a lot. So no, it's not technically a full-time job because it's not paying a full-time wage. And so the stress level is actually much higher the longer I'm on this or running this YouTube channel where the support isn't there. it just keeps escalating. But again, we'll have some information coming out for you guys soon that will detail that plan a lot more than what I can do here. So just to kind of clarify your question here, I work in full-time hours. It's not full-time pay, and it's more stressful now than it's ever been. Next question. What's the hardest game you've ever made a guide for? The one that gave you the most troubles and frustrations? I really don't like to use the word hard or easy when it comes to guide making. I think that's kind of a myth on our channel. We really don't make guides for quote unquote difficult games. We make guides for any game. Our goal is to save players time, right? That's why I like to make guides. So you take an easy game that might be 100-hour platinum. Well, if I can shave that quote unquote easy game down to 50 hours and you can get your platinum, then that's why I want to make the guide for that game. Even though it's technically considered easy, I just want to save you the 50 hours. Does that make sense? And this goes for even a game that's 2 hours long, right? If I can cut that down to an hour because I can optimize it, even though it's considered easy, boom, I can save you an hour of your time. So again, I don't like to use easy or hard. I prefer the word tricky. And if we're going on along that line of logic, then it would be, I guess it would have been Ghost of Tsushima. I think I actually said this in my previous Q&A because I think somebody asked me this same question. And I said it was Ghost of Tsushima, but now it's obviously Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I mean, this game has so much content, and we have a series, guys. If you're not aware of this, over on Patreon and YouTube memberships called the Breaking Series, and it documents my journey going through the game and trying to figure out how I'm going to optimize it, defeat bosses or whatever. Think of it like a highlight reel. It's like a highlight reel of the RTC guide. And it's me planning the route and why I make certain adjustments in the guide and why I tackle bosses a certain way, and how do we minimize menuing and things like that. So if you're keeping up with that series, you already know that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is a very tricky game to write a guide for. I think we're currently on 50 something episodes in that series, and we're probably looking at another 20 or 25 plus before we finish it. Any game that has like a semi-open world or open world format with a lot of activities to do, collectibles, they're always tricky. Not necessarily to get a platinum if you're just playing on your own, but when you're talking about optimizing and squeezing in all the trophy activity into a nice and concise playthrough, Jesus, man, there's so much content that you have to take out of the game. I think that's another misconception that trophy hunters throw around all the time, is that the trophy hunt is a 100% of the game, and it's just not. A lot of times the developers will ask us to do 100% of the events in the game, but it doesn't mean that we're actually participating in 100% of the game. The Witcher 3 is a prime example. That game is estimated with the DLCs to be about 160 to 200 hours when it comes to the online estimated platinum time. And I think our guide, or my playlist, I think was 36 hours. And then I didn't use the horse, which means I wasn't able to run around the areas fast, right? Because the horse always glitches. So I didn't want that to be in the guide. So that slowed me down. And of course I play slow when it comes to making guides. I'm always pausing and trying to make it where you guys don't have to pause the video so much, right? So I will make pauses so that you guys can catch up and follow in more of a streamlined process. And I thought that I could probably speed run that game in about 25 hours, but we had one of our members, the Haymeister, actually used the visual guide over on Patreon and got the platinum in about 20 hours. So, taking an online estimated platinum time from 200 hours down to 20 hours is no joke. And that, like I said, that guide took about 4 months to make, over 1,000 hours of production. And I still could have probably taken out some time if I really wanted to go back in and work on it some more. The longer I work on these guides, the more time you guys save. So anytime you're like, man, it's been 3 months and Exonovan's still working on this game, just know that I'm saving you another 6 hours or 5 hours or 10 hours, right? Or in this case, it could be 50 hours, right? So the longer I can work on these games where you guys aren't pressuring me to finish, the better your trophy hunt will be, right? But yeah, the trickiest one right now is easily Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Another question. Also, are there any games you strictly avoid doing guides for? Even someone like you would have their limit with some games. I mean, I'm pretty much ready to tackle any trophy hunt. I guess I would say that I do avoid games that have a lot of multiplayer trophies. I'm not opposed to playing games that might have 2 to 5 online trophies. And then of course that depends on, when I'm playing the game. If, some of these online multiplayers, man, they'll just die out. And there won't even be enough people in the lobby to get the trophies, right? Or to start matches, or maybe there are enough players in the server to start a match, but it might take 20 minutes to find all those players. If it's that way, I'm just not interested. I'm not interested in wasting time just sitting in a lobby doing nothing. If I can actively trophy hunt, I'm good. But again, sitting in the lobby, guys, waiting for players to join I'm good. Now if it has just a few online trophies, like 2 or 3, and maybe it's hop into a match and win one time, and then maybe there's another one for playing 10 matches or something like that, yeah, I'm always willing to do those. Personally, as far as a YouTube channel, I don't like covering online trophies, because eventually the servers will get shut down, and then all that time and effort I put into covering that game will be obsolete. Right now my guide is suddenly broken. It doesn't work anymore. And I do have a few games on the channel that way, like Demon Souls has some online trophies. So I know at some point when those servers get shut down, then, the guide is just basically broken. That sucks. I hate investing time in that way where I can't have a guide as a permanent fixture on the channel forever. So that's why a lot of times we just avoid the online multiplayer. So I would say that is something that I shy away from. I think another one would be permadeath trophies. Although I'm not opposed to permadeath trophies, I actually wish there were more permadeath trophies in games, because I like to test and test my skill and be challenged and stuff like that. I know that's going to be a disagreement with a lot of trophy hunters. My issue with permadeath trophies is not the permadeath trophy itself. It's the fact that I know these games can crash. My PlayStation can crash, right? Xbox can crash, whatever. And then if you are halfway through an 8-hour run, then suddenly you're back at the beginning and it's not your fault. And glitches are also a thing. So even if you have like really good strategies to get through a game, and a prime example of this is Wolfenstein. I think it was, I can't remember which one it was, what the subtitle was. I played it on my old channel. If you guys have been around, you'll remember this. I did a hardcore walkthrough, or I don't know what the game called it, the hardest difficulty walkthrough. So I showed players how to get through that, and I know how to sequence that entire game together to where, you could get the permadeath trophy for it too. But recording it was a nightmare. Again, games crashing. I think back then, I don't know if they've changed it by now, but I know back then you could not skip the cutscenes. That's another thing I cannot stand in games. When it's time to trophy hunt, I don't want to watch no cutscenes. So between the cutscenes and the fact that the glitches were there, and the fact that my game and console can crash anytime, I'm not a fan of those. But again, I'm not opposed to them. If the game is 3 hours long, if I optimize it and it's 3 hours long, and things of that nature, then it's not so bad if you get reset. So yeah, those are where my limits are. But everything that's on the other side of that fence, right, I'm good, right? I'm willing to cover just about anything or play just about any game if it has a platinum. Care to share with us how you prepare for the guides, 100% completion, research, etc.? So the process is pretty extensive. I will show you guys this before I start breaking it down. If you go over to Patreon and you are a member, you can scroll down to collections, and there is a collection called the Breaking Series. We've already talked about that in the first question. If you click on this, guys, it will take you through all the playlists that we currently have. There's 14. That really details how I break down a game. I can understand if you guys don't want to sign up just to see this stuff, or maybe you want to test it out. So I've included, you gotta come down here to free rewards and you go to the breaking playlist here, you can actually watch my breaking playlist for Demon Souls. You know, see if it interests you. If you like this sort of content, guys, I post it in that, again, that collection called the Breaking Series. And like I said, for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, we're currently at plus 50 episodes. I think Elden Ring had 50 plus episodes. I mean, it gets pretty crazy. Now, some of the games we cover, guys, only has like 4 episodes because they're smaller or there's not much to break. But this is something that I put out for members while I'm working on a guide. So think of it more like, it's not daily content, but you know, every few days I'll drop a few episodes in a playlist. Some of you guys may or may not know this. Again, I'll take you over here to the collections page. We'll go to the free rewards. We have a visual guide. It's, to me, one of the best resources online for trophy hunting. I don't think you're going to find a faster resource than this. You guys can test this one out for free if you'd like. It's, again, it's part of the free rewards. But if I take you over here to it, this is what I make when I'm running the game during the routing and optimization stage. It is a visual guide. So think of it like a wiki mixed with like an old school paper strategy guide, except we use minimal text and we mainly focus on the picture. So like in this particular screenshot, it just says the rule, because we have rules in these. In other words, I'm only going to say it one time, and then as long as you follow that rule for the rest of the guide, you're good. So the rule for this particular screenshot is just to always collect coins, because we need at least 6,000 to complete the guide, and that's what a coin looks like in the game. So you would collect all 3 of those, and then you would move to the go marker. It's just that simple, man. So you always do the thing that's in the circle first, and then you move to the marker. That's it. And when you get to this platform, and if you play this game, you already know this, when you get to this platform, you see this. It's always going to be the next screenshot. So we have to interact with both of these panels. Then what happens? We get another panel, then we interact with that. And then when you're done with the cutscene, you're in this hub. What do? Pull that rope, or I guess it's like chords. And then what happens? It opens this up. What do? You go to the top, right? So, and you would just do this all the way down. And this is the entire guide. It's 319 slides. It's super fast. And everything that you see here is a carbon copy of what I produce in the actual video format. But if you're following this is how you get done extremely quick. Like, think about it like this, guys. With The Witcher 3, again, I think my playlist is about 36 hours. And if you follow that video, right, you can probably double your time, because it's extremely difficult sometimes to follow in real time. So you have to think 36 times 2. That's probably where you're going to end up being with your trophy hunt, which is still great. You're talking about 70 or 80 hours. You're still going to be saving like 120 plus hours off the online estimated platinum time. So even following the videos is fast. But the way that the Haymeister got 20 hours on this game is he only used this. He did not use the videos, right? He only uses the videos as a reference when he can't quite get the information he needs from these slides. Maybe something's just confusing and he doesn't quite understand what I'm trying to portray in a screenshot, because sometimes it is hard to portray something in a screenshot. He'll just shoot over to the video and check it out. And you're like, well, that seems like that will be cumbersome, exonerant. Like, how does that work? Well, it's simple, guys. So you just copy this, right? And if you come over here, you're also going to get a workbook. You get a visual guide and a workbook, and you come to the checklist. This is all the timestamps in the game, right? So if I hit Control F, it pulls up the search, and then I just copy and paste I just paste what I copied from the visual guide, and it takes me to that exact spot in the workbook. See, episode 5, here's the spot. And if I click that, it'll take me over to the video in the exact spot where, you know, maybe a player has a question, to the exact spot. So it's a 1-to-1 of what you see over here. See, PlayStation Labo, PlayStation Labo. And then from there, you would watch that particular step, right? So you would watch from 7:47 to 8:20, and that would be the step that you might, you know, have a question about. So it's super simple, guys. You're allowed to trophy hunt, or you're able to trophy hunt using our resources, and you only need 3 tabs open up on your computer. That's it. And you'll never need 16 wikis open or none of that stuff, right? And again, I'm using my own notes to record the guide. This is why our guides are really streamlined. And again, the camera angles are clean. smooth gameplay, right? And it's because I'm just going down these one by one, and I'm doing the same thing that I'm asking you guys to do in the videos. But if you want to, go into detail about each individual game, guys, become a member on Patreon or YouTube. You get access to the breaking series, and you'll get all these resources. And trust me, man, your trophy hunts will go a lot smooth once you learn how to use the visual guides and the workbooks. And a lot of our members don't even use the videos anymore unless it's just for reference. So keep that in mind. So hopefully that helps. I can't go into too much detail because it would take forever to show you guys how to make these guides. But again, the breaking series does a really good job of that. Next question, why haven't you shown your face in any of your videos? When followers have a visual image of you, it builds trust and creates a more personal connection. Well, it's really three reasons. Number one, it's not going to add any value to our videos. Okay, we're covering guides. If I had a face cam up in the top left, I would just be covering up gameplay elements and all that stuff. Believe it or not, back in the day on my old channel, when I had that visual overlay, you guys remember that? The reason for that was because I was thinking about doing face cams, and so was the guy that was helping me, and we didn't want our face covering up the gameplay, so we made that overlay. And then we decided not to show our faces, but then everybody liked the overlays, so we just kept them. And obviously I eventually got rid of them because they took a lot of time to make, and a lot of people started using mobile phones and stuff like that, and I didn't want to take up the real estate. So that was one reason. Two, guys, I don't think that it, or I should say for me, it feels uncomfortable when you can see my face, but I can't see yours. And while the statement you make here might be true, that maybe you guys trust me more by seeing my face, I mean, I can't see yours. So does that mean that I don't trust you? I don't know if I follow that line of logic, because there's people who's been supporting me financially for years that I don't even know what they look like. And they must trust me on in some form or fashion, right, to still be supporting financially. And of course, I trust them to keep supporting me financially. And yet we've never seen each other. I think by now, if I haven't proven to the trophy hunting community that I'm here, that I'm working as hard as I can work, then I don't think showing my face is going to do much to add to that. It's not going to add any value, right? Because I think I'm already bringing a ton of value to the table already. And this, the third reason, guys, it's just for obvious reasons, right? I don't want to be doxxed. I don't want to put myself out there. I don't want to have pizzas being delivered to my house. I don't want people showing up at my address, and I don't want to be hounded if I go into the grocery store. I'm just a pretty private, low-key person. Somebody said years ago, said he must be a burn victim. He must have a charred face. This is what somebody said in a comment, and I'm like, no, man, I'm not self-conscious about anything the way I look physically. That's not even it. I just don't see the point, right? I think more content creators should not be showing their face, because if you guys keep up with YouTube and Twitch, man, there's a lot of people who's ruined their entire lives because people just know who they are, right? So for those three reasons, that's why I'll never show my face on the internet. Another question, when you first met the requirements for YouTube monetization, how much did you earn in the first few months? Per month, actually. I did monetize my channel when I first started YouTube. This was my old channel, my first channel. Me and my friend were running that channel. I want to say that maybe by month 3 or 4, we were making over $300 a month. We started the monetization process because back then YouTube was really big, or I should say third-party companies were really big on saying that they could help protect your content from copyright. YouTube was still very early on with gaming and stuff like that, so any kind of gaming content you posted would get copyrighted, and these third-party companies, they were called MCNs, would come in and say they could protect you, right? And I guess they did in some form or fashion, but to do that you had to be monetized, right? Because they wanted to get their cut, and so we monetized only because we thought we had to. When my friend left the channel to pursue his college education and stuff, which was fine, I decided to continue running the channel. And then some things fell through in my MCN. I think they got bought out or something. And I kept getting all these emails, people asking me about my social security number and all this kind of stuff, and sign these forms. And I was like, man, I just don't even know what I'm getting myself into. So I just kind of went on alone after that. I quit the MCNs. and just kind of took the risk in having my stuff copyrighted. So I would do things to kind of protect myself. I would mute certain elements in the game, you know, like certain songs that would get copyrighted. In other words, I guess what I'm saying is I would play the game and then sometimes I would post them on YouTube after I did my edit unlisted to see if they would get copyrighted. And then when I found out what was copyrighted, I would go back into the edit and remove whatever was copyrighted and then put it back on YouTube. Then YouTube's back-end editor got a lot more robust and they allow you to mute it from there. So I did that a few times, but then I just realized that if I just pull the audio out of the game, like all the music, just leaving the sound effects, then I never really have to worry about copyright. And I said, you know, we're just making guides, so I don't really need the music in there. And so that's what I do now, and I don't have to worry about any copyright. But now, obviously, at this stage in the game, I'm not monetized because I don't do ads on any of my videos, nor do I have an MCN, because I'm pretty sure that's a requirement. You know, we were doing, 2-3 minute trophy videos back then. We would cover the whole game, but it wasn't a road to completion guide. We would just cover each trophy individually, right? So we were racking up, like, I mean, sometimes we would get like, 600,000 views a month. And this was early on because we were getting 20, 30,000 views for each video. And there were like 50 trophies in the game. I mean, it was insane. And, some would do better than others. But we were making pretty good. But like I said, nowadays I don't monetize my videos. I don't run ads, which we'll talk about that too. Somebody asked a question about that, I believe. And that's just for the viewer. I just want you guys to have the best possible viewing experience. And trust me, guys, if I ran ads, you would hate me for it because I would have to run like 7 or 8 per video. And you guys would absolutely hate me for it. And not to mention, a lot of you would just use a browser that gets rid of ads like Brave, or you would use ad blocker anyway. And then I would just be wasting time loading in content because you have to manually put in those ads. At least I would have to for our videos. And then I would have to do that 7 or 8 times for every episode. And then let's just be honest, most of you wouldn't watch them anyway. So I just don't see the point. I would rather be funded by you guys through, memberships and stuff like that, because it's just a lot more consistent than ads. So yeah, we were making about, I would say 300 plus a month, and we were probably on the road to making 1,000 a month consistently, or several thousand a month consistently. But I said, bump all that. I didn't want to be held down by an MCN. I didn't want to sign any contracts, and I just didn't want to run ads. And the last one is, what's your current monthly income from YouTube alone, not including any other resources? On YouTube, it's about $83, give or take. And then on Patreon, I think we just hit $718 today. We were at $768 about 30 to 45 days ago, but we've, lost some members for whatever reason. We were down to, I think, 703. We had 2 new members sign up, so we're at 718. So, it's give or take about $800 a month. But again, it needs to be a lot more than that for me to be able to pursue this. How did you get into achievement hunting? Uncharted on the PS3. I think a lot of us found trophy hunting through Uncharted. It's what I'm known for online. It was the game that I covered the most on my old channel and at length. And I think it actually was the first RTC guide that I ever made on YouTube, was way back on Uncharted for the PS3. It was actually a suggestion by one of my viewers to put all the trophies together in one cohesive guide and then post it on the internet. And I had already thought about doing that, but I just didn't know if people would be interested in watching something so long. And but when he said you should try it, I was like, okay. And I think at the time, Call of Duty, the players for Call of Duty had a thing called Road to Prestige. I think that was a big kind of Road to, right, series. And I think that's how we came up with Road to Completion. I think before Road to Completion, it was called Road to 1,000 Gamer Score, because I started playing, or I started my channel with the Xbox, and then I forgot what we called it for the PlayStation, but it was 2 different names. And I was like, man, I really don't want to have 2 different names for both consoles. I need to come up with the name that kind of will be for both. And so then we came up with Road to Completion, because you guys know when you finish the campaign's trophy list, you know, and you get your platinum, it says 100% on your profile. Even though when DLC comes out, it drops that percentage. But you guys get what I'm saying. My guides are built around the campaign only, mainly, I should say. So Road to Completion, Road to that 100% complete is where that name came into play. So Uncharted on the PS3 was what got me into trophy and achievement hunting. Will you ever do a face reveal? No, I don't think I will, guys. I just don't want myself to be on the internet that way. Again, I can't see your faces, you can't see mine, and I just prefer it stay that way. How long does it take to do a full platinum guide for a AAA game? It depends on the game. If you're talking about something like a Final Fantasy 1 pixel remaster, that guide we posted, that took about 9 days. A game like The Medium took 4 days. This total production. This is from the time I start to the time it posts online. But if you take a game like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, we're probably talking 5 months, and it may go into that 6 month, because just the editing alone, guys, the timestamps, the script, the commentary, that stuff can take almost a month just for a game like Rebirth. More perspective, The Witcher 3 took 4 months, Final Fantasy X 4 months, Neo 2 took 4 months, but it took 8 playthroughs because of all the RNG in that game. I would play through one time, get the platinum, no problem. Play through the second time and stuff in the guide would fail. Why? RNG was kicking in. And then I'd fix those mistakes, play through a third time, perfect. Play through a fourth time, stuff fell apart, right? And so I just had to keep playing it and playing it and playing it until I got it down to a science, even with the RNG. And that was extremely tough. So it just depends on the game, but I would argue that most AAA games take less than 2 months. As someone who wants to start content creation, what are some of the best ways to start and get things going? First of all, you need to find time. Okay, if you don't have time to do this, it's going to be very hard. Well, it's not going to be very hard to start. It'll be very hard to keep it all running. Okay. Starting this thing is not that big of a problem, right? You just get a capture card, get you a decent microphone. You need to have a decent computer and a little bit of knowledge on how to edit, right? And really, at this stage in the game, you really don't even have to know how to edit, because you can live stream the content or just rip it straight from your PlayStation and post it. So that actually means you don't need a capture card in some instances. Now, obviously there's limitations on these consoles and things of that nature, but you get my point. You can just fire up a game right now, man, and live stream it. Or like I said, keep the clip on your PlayStation or Xbox and then just move that into, share it online, and you're good. So you can avoid all that upfront cost, right? Just get a decent microphone. I remember my microphone when I first started was a Blue Yeti, and it was not that great. But I used it, right? And I think we were using, my friend had a Apple computer, and so we were using whatever I think it was called GarageBand or something like that, to record our commentary. So like I said, starting is not hard. It's not in the times we're living in, right? But man, keeping it going, that's something that most content creators, that's where they fail. They cannot keep the content going. It's even tough for me at times because of the content that I make, but I'm going to be taking some steps going forward over the next year so that we can ensure that the content keeps flowing. But time, I cannot stress to you, you need to have the time. Can you do the full Uncharted series till Lost Legacy? Yes, I will eventually cover all these games on the channel. We've already covered Uncharted 1. You guys know that, well, some of you may not know this, but we are becoming a more franchised focused channel, because I posted Final Fantasy X a while back, but did not post Final Fantasy X-2, and I have not written a guide for that. It's not like I'm sitting on it, but what I should have done is covered both of those games back to back, right? Because it sucks when players come to our channel, they follow Final Fantasy X, and then I'm like, man, that was good, I got my platinum, and then they immediately want to roll into 10-2, and then the guide isn't there. And then of course they go to another channel and so forth and so on, or maybe they can't find it at all, and they're kind of bummed out. So if you guys notice, at the beginning of this year, we covered BioShock 1, 2, and Infinite back to back to back, right? And that's something that we're going to start doing as we move forward. You guys know, well, I guess some of you may not know, but if you come over to, again, Patreon, this is where everything is, guys. Let me take you guys back over here. We do polls over here. It's for Crazy 88 members. They get a poll called the Hateful Eight. And then all of the members get access to the X Games. And that's where we vote to determine which games we're going to cover next. And so we're doing a better job. We will be doing a better job moving forward of making sure that the games in the poll, they're either themed, like it might all be horror games, or it might be games that are all 20 hours a piece. In other words, the online estimated platinum time is 20 hours a piece. They may all be platformers. They may all be RPGs, making sure that they're more competitive. But another thing that we're trying to make sure of, guys, is that if there's a game that has a franchise built around it, that we're trying to cover all the games. Because remember, for me, guys, it's just time. So I could cover, with 300 hours a month, I mean, I could cover several hundred 99-cent games, and you guys would get several hundred platinums in 1 month. Or I can spend the next 4 months covering just one AAA game like Cyberpunk. And then over that 4-month period, you only get 1 platinum. So the Hateful Eight, the Crazy 88 members, they get to determine what gets pushed to the X Games, which games get pushed out. A lot of that responsibility is on them. And then everybody comes through and votes who is a member. And that really determines coverage. But we're trying to join these games together. So I think, and we'll get to this question later on because somebody asked about Borderlands. So, if that game hit the poll, it wouldn't just be like Borderlands 1. It would be the whole franchise, right? And we would just cover them all back to back to back. But then again, the other 7 games would also be maybe not franchises. It may just be one game like Death Stranding. But if I can cover Death Stranding in 4 months, right, and I can also cover all the Borderlands games, let's just say I could cover all those games in 4 months, then it doesn't matter because the production cycle is still 4 months. And you guys get to pick at that point if you want 1 platinum trophy hunt in a 4-month period, or if you want 3 or 4. I don't know how many games in the Borderlands series, but you get what I'm saying. If there's 2 games, you would get 2 platinums in 4 months. And again, it doesn't matter to me. And that's where the Crazy 88 members on Patreon get to determine that for the group. And what we're going to do on the administrative side of things is make sure that the games are more competitive, so that they can make better choices. And this is something we're going to do in the next preseason polls. Okay. How long will you continue making guides? I know that I'm going to make guides until the end of next year, the end of 2025. Support has been going up month by month. Then what'll happen is when we hit these long production cycles like we're in now, support absolutely just gets demolished. Sometimes we'll lose $100. Sometimes we'll lose $50 this month, or I should say in the last 45 days, we've lost about $60 in support. And I get it. People's financial situation changes. People see the inactivity. They don't really truly understand that what I'm doing requires a lot of time and effort. And to them, I guess it just looks like he's not doing anything or he's not working. It couldn't be farther from the truth, but I get it. So we've got to do a better job moving forward of being more present in the social media space and updating you guys and stuff like that on where we stand with making these guys. And I say we guys because I consider this to be our channel, not just my channel. That's why I use that we and us a lot, because I feel like we're in this fight together as a group. It's just as much your channel, guys, as it is mine. So I will guarantee that I will make guides until the end of 2025. Once we hit January 1st, 2026, I honestly don't know what's going to happen. It really just depends on you guys and how much you're willing to support. I can't keep making $2 an hour. I mean, I'm also not complaining about it because again, I chose this path. I knew that going into this, I might not get any support. I also knew that I could be making $10,000 a month, right? So the swing is pretty heavy on both sides, right? Nothing to that. And I know Twitch streamers and stuff, some of these guys are making $50, $60 plus $1,000 a month. So I know that the money's there. I know that gamers do want to support the content creators that they love watching. And whether or not it happens to us or not, I can't control that. I can't control what you guys do with your money. I can control what I do with my time, and I'm putting it in. That's all I can do. If after next year, you know, again, putting in 300 hours a month, if we're not, you know, again, we're going to talk to you guys about goals later on with another video. But if the goal hasn't been met, then I have no choice. I mean, I can't keep burning through my savings to keep the channel alive because the money coming through right now just is not enough. And I'm very happy with the money that's coming in. I don't want anybody to think that I'm mad about that, because it's very gracious, but you know, just being transparent, it's not even close to what I need to do this as like a true full-time job. So I got you guys covered into the end of 2025, and then we'll have to do a big video on January the 1st or something like that, January 2026, and update you guys, because either I'm gonna have to walk away from this thing permanently and I will not come back. Once I make big decisions in my life like that, guys, I do not backstep. So if I ever do quit, I will never come back. On the other hand, we might, you know, just have to change our business model. And you guys, I mean, right now I'm giving the content out for free, and I'm hoping that people support. And I mean, just put two and two together, guys. If I change my business model, it's the opposite of that. I'm only going to be able to take care of people that take care of me, which means if you're not taking care of me, I can't help you. And I don't want that. I don't think you guys want that. So to truly answer your question, I got you guys through 2025, but really the answer to that question is more about you guys and has nothing to do with me. Next question. Why did you start putting so much effort into games to help us get platinum? I remember when I came to YouTube back in the day, I was looking up a trophy for Battlefield 3, and I think I brought this up in the previous Q&A. If I didn't, I'll tell you guys about it now. There was a trophy called You Can Be My Wingman Anytime or something like that, some wingman related trophy. And I went online, you know, looked on YouTube, couldn't find it, the answer to my question. I mean, I found a few videos and people were saying this is how you get it, and then I would do that and I wouldn't be able to get it. And it's clearly that person didn't truly know how that trophy popped. They just happened to get it and then posted a video and then tried to say that they knew how to get it. And that's just a big difference than knowing exactly how to get it. And I tried a bunch of FAQs and, you know, nothing. So it was the lack of content, the lack of video guides that made me want to do this, right? Another thing that played pretty heavy in this decision was when my roommate came home, the guy who eventually helped me run the old channel. When he came home from school, I had figured out how to get the trophy on my own. I just spent several hours replaying that chapter, right, or that sequence, and figured it out down to a science. And he came home, and of course he was having problems getting that achievement. So I, you know, said, hey man, let's go to your, because we were roommates. I said, let's go to your room, man, and you fire it up and I'll walk you through it step by step. And I said, just play. And he started playing it, and I said, do this, do that. When this happens, do this. And I walked him through it step by step, and he just followed directions. He didn't ask any questions, or he just boom, boom, boom. And then bam, achievement popped. And he was just amazed how magical that moment was. And then he said, man, you should start a YouTube channel. And I didn't know, I mean, I knew YouTube was a place you could watch videos, but I didn't know I didn't know about starting a channel. You know what I'm saying? But it was actually him that kind of convinced me to fire one up. He said, and this should be the first thing you talk about. And at the time we were also playing the multiplayer and stuff, and we were, you know, pretty good at it, fairly good. And so he said we should post some multiplayer stuff and, you know, show people how to get this, that, and the other. And that's where it started, man. Battlefield 3. After 3 years since your last Q&A video, how has your mindset about gaming changed? I guess from a personal standpoint, I try to spend less time complaining and more time looking into the positive aspects of games. I think for me in my video game journey, I'm kind of over the conversations about this game is a 3 out of 10 and this game is a 7 out of 10. Because let's just be honest, man, there's nobody on this planet that can tell me the difference between a 6 out of 10 and a 7 out of 10, much less these websites that use decimals like 6.1 and 6.5. I find all of these numbering systems and things like that to be just a waste of time. They do nothing. And in fact, sometimes I'll watch reviews for entertainment purposes and I'll listen to the person describe the game and I'm like, oh, when they get to their review score, it's going to be like a 7 out of 10 and then it'll be like a 9 out of 10. So I can't even guess what the number is going to be based on what they say. The other day I watched somebody describe a game in their review and I was like, oh, this game's going to be like an 8 out of 10 and it was a 4 out of 10. And that's how crazy it can be, you know, when you compare somebody's actual thoughts versus a silly number. So I spend less time focusing on stuff like that, man, and complaining. Like I said, I don't have time to go to a forum and listen to 6 people complain about something, or for me to do that either. Like, it's okay to share your opinions about games and say, you know, I didn't really like this aspect of the game, but be more constructive with the feedback than just say this developer sucks. I think that's a silly way to address your experience with a game. Because I'll be honest, in most cases, when somebody says the developer sucks, it's really not the developer. And I've spoken to hundreds of thousands of trophy hunters in my day. And in most cases, it's either their lack of commitment to become a better player, to be a smarter player, and it's just their inability to have accountability and take responsibility for what they're not doing in that game. You know, they'd rather complain for 45 minutes than take that 45 minutes and push through that objective and learn and correct their mistakes and actually become a better player and push on. And so I don't really have time to engage in those kind of conversations anymore. I find them to be all frivolous, and they just don't do anything for me as a gamer. So yeah, complaining, review scores, stuff like that on a personal level, I could care less. As a business, my mindset has changed a lot because now we're in crunch time. Like I said, we've got about 1.5 years or so to figure some things out. And I haven't really done a lot on the channel in terms of like marketing, because I don't want our channel to become like Patreon ads and YouTube ads and, you know, do this and support here and support that and, you know, PayPal donations. But I have upped the marketing a little bit with each RTC guide. You guys have seen that. I have a opening 3-second slide now that just talks about Patreon. Then there's a thing in the bottom left that says get your free rewards. And then we have a better outro, like a little call to action there. I'm also going to look at getting on some of these websites like PlayStationTrophies.org and True Trophies and True Achievements. See if we can get our guides on there and hopefully generate some traffic, and hopefully out of that traffic generate some more revenue for our membership programs. So from a business, my mindset has changed drastically because, like I said, we're in crunch time, man. 1.5 years, or I guess now it's less than 1.5 years, is not a long time as a content creator. So I've got to really start pushing some of these platforms to you guys. And I know it's going to cause some of you guys to hate me, but again, if you guys want to keep getting guides, you're just going to have to deal with it on some level or leave. I mean, I can't make you stay here, but I've got to get the word out that, you know, we're trying to survive as a company, you know, and unless you guys support, then it all ends. So I've got to get the word out, because right now there's 10,000 people on the channel and we've only got about 140 people supporting. That's not very good numbers. It's a lot to think about. So I have to kind of, you know, look at this thing from a personal and a business, you know, side of things. And my business hat says it's time to get out there and market, whether the people like you or not. You know, like I said, I'm gonna do the best I can not to shove everything down you guys' throats. Because again, I don't want our channel to become just one big ad, but some of this stuff has got to reach people. And so we're going to be using the community tab over on YouTube a lot. We're going to be doing more social media stuff, and we're going to have more of a theme to the channel so that we can all kind of focus and I can keep you guys on track with where we stand. And, you know, you'll see it, guys, in the next few months. You'll see this stuff roll out. But yeah, on a personal standpoint, I just try not to complain as much. And I stay away from, you know, scores and ratings, and I don't care if somebody thinks the game is easy or hard. Again, I find those words to not fully describe trophy hunts. I think words like tricky, tedious, time consuming, I think those are better, but you rarely hear those. And from a business standpoint, yeah, man, we got to survive. we're in survival mode. So more marketing, more getting our stuff out to gamers, and we'll take it from there. Are you able to play games for yourself, or are you always making guides? I am always making guides for the most part. I would say like 95% of the time. I was able to play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. You guys know Final Fantasy VII, that whole franchise is my favorite franchise ever. And of course, Final Fantasy VII Original is my favorite game of all time. So I did play that game, but technically, on a technicality, it's still for an RTC guide. I've already covered Remake. I knew eventually members over on Patreon and YouTube would vote Rebirth through. I didn't know when, but I knew eventually it would happen. It happened sooner than later. So technically my first playthrough, in the back of my mind, I'm working, right? I did enjoy the game. I did experience it as just a, straight playthrough. I didn't, take any notes or anything, but it's hard to turn this part of your brain off when you make guides for just about every game you play. So there were moments, I kid you not, where I fired up, a visual guide and started taking a note or two. And I was like, wait, I don't have to take notes. This is just a let's play for me, right? And then I would shut it down, but it's just habit. So no, I don't really play games for myself anymore. That part is basically over until I shut the YouTube channel down. Again, it goes back to a question from earlier. Starting a channel, easy. Maintaining content, difficult. So everything you play should be recorded, and you should be able to pull something out of it, right? A full let's play, a walkthrough, maybe some clips, highlight real stuff, funny stuff, glitches. Everything is important. And when you're talking about a 20-hour playthrough, you can get a lot of content out of that, right? So yeah, everything I play going forward is, or in the past and going forward, is for content. Although I will be playing a lot more stuff outside of RTC guides going forward. You guys know I'm relaunching Go Retro soon, and things of that nature. So there will be extra content, but even that's going to be voted on by members. Again, I'm going to explain all this later. I guess what I'm saying is I won't be able to freely play the games that I want to play. That'll still be voted on, and then I'll just play the games that the people want, that the members want, and we'll take it from there. But yeah, I really don't get to play games outside of either RTC guides or other content. What is the guide you enjoyed making the most? Well, I think I said this in my previous Q&A as well. I like making the quick games. Why wouldn't I, right? The quick games you get done in 4 or 5 days, you're finished. And some of these games you can get done in a day, right? And as a content creator, I want to get more guides up, right? So the quicker games, the better for me, because maybe I can get 40 guides up a year instead of the 5 to 8 we get up now, right? But if you're talking about tricky games, tedious games, I think the ones that I'm most proud of are the Souls games, mainly Bloodborne, Sekiro. Those are very, very tough games to put a guide for, just because the mechanics are, there are some similarities with, the Dark Souls games, but they're kind of in a league of their own. And then they're completely different, right, in some of their mechanics. So those were tricky to put together. Talked about this earlier with the Ghost of Tsushima and the Final Fantasy Rebirth. Those are very tricky to put together, but I do like it when they're done, because I know I'm going to save players so much freaking time. So those are always fun to make. I guess in some weird way, I like making all the guides. I know that doesn't really answer your question, so I'm glad I was specific, but I love making all the guides. I find writing guides to be very relaxing. It's actually the least stressful part of my entire day, is when I sit down for that, 10 hours or so and write guides. It's all the other stuff that happens outside of that 10-hour bubble that's extremely stressful. Next question. What is your favorite Final Fantasy game? I actually just answered this. It's Final Fantasy VII, the original. Okay, not the remake, the original. But of course, I like that entire franchise. I haven't played all of the games. Like the mobile game that came out, I didn't play that. And I think there was I haven't played Dirge of Cerberus. I didn't play that. But I played all the other games, the Final Fantasy VII games. I just love that world. I love the characters. Some of you know this already, but when I played Final Fantasy VII back in, I don't remember when I don't know the year I played. I know I was still in high school, I think. And it was the first game that I played where my brother did not help me play it. Prior to that, we had played Final Fantasy on Nintendo and Super Nintendo, right? And we had played the other games, Dragon Warrior and a bunch of other RPGs and just games in general. He was always there, and he was really good at strategy, telling me what to do, and I was really fast, doing the button presses and moving the character. So we kind of tag team things, right? He would tell me what to do, I would execute, and we were a good dynamic duo. Then when Final Fantasy VII happened, he and I were not in the same state. He was going off to college, and I was like, man, I don't know if I can beat this game on my own. It looks so difficult. And, Final Fantasy VII was quite the jump in technology, and it had a bunch of cutscenes and all these summons and stuff. And I was like, man, materia and equipment changes. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. So it was the first game that I truly beat without support from my brother. And it's not, I don't want to say that Final Fantasy VII is my favorite game because of the way it was presented or the graphics or anything like that, even though that does carry some weight. It's my favorite game because when I remember it, I remember that milestone being achieved on a personal level. And it gave me the confidence to say, you know what, I can play these games on my own. I can do my own thing. I don't need somebody holding my hand all the time. And for me, that's the main reason why it became my favorite game, because it was what I needed to give me the confidence to say, yeah, I could branch out and do my own thing and play some other games. My question comes from being a dad. How do you relax and unwind in your limited spare time? Music, books, or even a video game you like to play without trophies being a factor? I really don't spend a lot of time socializing. Even though I'm a very social person, I'm not one of these people who's like, I have to stay inside all the time. I don't want to meet people. I actually like meeting people, and I wish I could go out more, right? But it's just the path I've chosen just doesn't allow it. But I still get in my music time and my movies and stuff like that because I just multitask. So when I'm playing a game and writing a guide and doing all that stuff, I will have YouTube playing in the background, music. A lot of times it's music because it's less involved than something like a movie. Right? If it's a movie, I feel like, I need to be looking at what's happening in the movie to see the explosions and the interactions. But with music, it just plays in the background. So I'll listen to new artists and stuff like that while I'm routing guides. If I do decide to watch a movie, it's never a movie for the first time because my brain just can't process both. I will watch movies that I've watched before, like, Jurassic Park and Contact right now is free on YouTube. You can watch it free with ads, I should say. And stuff like that. And I'll watch things that my brain is already familiar with just so it's playing in the background, but I don't have to fully consume that content. But it helps me just push through some of the boredom that might come along with running these games for 4 months, right? And it keeps me from getting burnt out. But as far as dedicated time, I do have a best friend. His family actually lives about an hour from me. I'll go down there maybe, at least once a year. But sometimes we'll hit like maybe 4 or 5 times a year. He stays pretty busy. Of course, he's got children, he's got a pet. So he has a lot of limitations on his time just by default, right? Just from being a husband and having a family. But we'll make arrangements to see each other and hang out. And of course, when we do that, we tend to play games. We play a lot of retro games, Contra, stuff like that, Jackal on the NES, because they're just quick and we don't have a lot of time. So we can't get into something crazy like a Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Although I did go and buy my copy with him. That's kind of our thing that we do when Final Fantasies come out. Like when the 3rd volume comes out, we always pre-order it from the same spot. I always meet him at his house after work if it comes out during the week. And then we always go to the same spot and get it, come home. He does the family thing, and then we'll sit down and play for a few hours before I have to drive back home. but it's just to kind of get a feel for the game. And then of course we play it on our own. But that's really the only time I have quote unquote dedicated time to enjoy life. There's also some things that we'll do. Of course, if there's a Star Wars movie that comes out or something, we'll go see that, or a big movie, we'll go see that. But outside of that, man, I don't travel. I just stay inside the house and sit in this chair and work for you guys. That's really it. And I don't really get into books, mainly because time, right? I would have to sit there and just read the book. I know there's audiobooks. I've never tried them. Maybe I could get into them, but music and movies playing in the background, or even YouTube content from you guys. I'm subscribed to some of you guys, and I can listen to your content in the background. Like Dormouse 03 is a good example. One of the things she puts out on her channel that I absolutely love is her and Iron Praetorian. One of her friends, I know him as well. I actually met him through her. They get together and talk about the games they've played, either, in the last maybe 30 to 45 days. It's like a wrap-up video. It's so good. And they expound on their, trophy hunts and stuff like that, and things they liked and disliked. And they're usually an hour plus, which is good for me, right? And so that's become one of my favorite series to watch on all of YouTube, is that series. And I'm so giddy when a new episode drops. I have to make time to watch it, right? Find time to watch it. But yeah, long form content for me, music, movies, or things like that is typically what I'm into. What's your first name? I would really like to call you by your name instead of X, but I'll respect your privacy if you don't want to. Yeah, guys, feel free to call me X if you're hitting me up in a comment or something. I know Exonovant is a weird name. It's actually a name from a book I was writing several years ago. So I get it. It's hard to spell. It's hard to say. So feel free to call me X. This is actually a member over on Patreon, Cross Heritage. So yeah, they call me X over there. But yeah, just for the reasons I mentioned before, Cross, that's the reason why I wouldn't want to share my name. You said once that the RTC Guide tournaments are rigged and that you basically control the outcome a little bit. Can you expand on it more? How do you do it, and which guides do you try to quote unquote push, so to speak? Yeah, I say the word rigged loosely, and I'm assuming by tournaments you mean polls, because we don't, do the tournaments anymore. Just for reference, guys, there was a time Patreon members got to participate in tournaments. We had 128 games in this tournament. That was massive. But what we found is that the same games were in each tournament, and it just became very routine and not exciting. And plus, it cost us money each month to use that site that we use for the tournaments. And at the time, I didn't really have the money to afford it, and still don't really now. So that's why we just went to polling, which is free on Patreon and through YouTube. So I'm assuming that's what you're talking about, Cross, is the polls. And by rigged, that I say that loosely. One of the critiques I've gotten over the years is that Exonovant, we want you to pick a game. We want you to pick a game that you want to cover. Maybe we pick one, then you pick one. And I even polled you guys a while back on Patreon and asked that question. And that was one of the biggest things, was we want you to pick a game. So what I'm doing now with the polls is I'm just making sure that the games in the polls are games that I would like to cover. That's what I mean by the word rigged, meaning there's 8 games in the poll. I'm cool with any of those games winning because I want to cover all those games. Does that make sense? In other words, I'm not going to have 5 games in the poll that I want to cover and 3 that I don't want to cover, right? Because then if one of those 3 games wins, then I'm, quote unquote unhappy, right? So I just want to make sure that all the games in there are good for the channel. They're good for the community. Stuff that I've heard you guys say that you wanted in the suggestion forums. Now, I'll go ahead and tell you guys this too. There's over in the Hateful Eight collection, we have these things called sessions. I think we're on session 4. And I think after today, because yeah, it's the last Saturday of the month. On the last Saturday of every month, we do another session. It's a 30-day period of time where Crazy 88 members can suggest 3 games on a Google form. It can be the same game 3 times. You don't even have to suggest 3 games. You can just suggest 1 game and leave the other 2 spots blank. And it's your chance to kind of tell myself and the moderator, what you're looking for in terms of coverage. And we keep a spreadsheet that tallies everything up and blah, blah, blah. And we look at that suggestion form to help us determine what the next poll should be. you know, if we've got a lot of horror games on that suggestion page and they're all fairly popular, they're getting a lot of suggestions, we'll use that to maybe build the next poll. If we got a lot of 5-hour games being suggested, we'll use that to build the next poll, so forth and so on. And then again, back to your question, I'll just make sure that those games are games that I want to cover or that I think would be good on the channel. So it's a combination of what the community wants, what I think the channel needs, and then what I personally want to get involved with. Because again, I'm ready to cover just about any game, but we're coming off of Rebirth right now. So the next poll will not have Cyberpunk, Death Stranding, and some other game that's going to take me 4 months to cover, because we're just coming off, or we will be coming off, like a 4 to 6 month production cycle. So what I need at that particular moment in time is a shorter game so I can get back into the algorithm. So that's what I mean by rigged, and I put that in quotes. As far as the guides I'm trying to push, I'm not really trying to push anything specifically. I'm willing to cover whatever you guys want me to cover. I'm just making sure that the polling is as best as it can be, right? The poll itself. And then we just, you know, take it from there. I know you play video games other than for RTC guides. How do you choose these games? How much time do you dedicate to them? I don't actually. It's like we talked about earlier. Even a game like Rebirth, I kind of squeezed that one in, but I knew eventually it would be an RTC guide. I think the last game I played, and I think I spoke to you about this in a DM. I think the last game I played was, I played God of War, that didn't get an RTC guide, and I played Call of Duty, that didn't get an RTC guide, but I still turned those into content. So like the Call of Duty game was a walkthrough, and God of War was a personal play, which I posted online. And eventually I'm thinking that will become an RTC guide. So, and I don't think if I fully answered your question in that DM, I don't know if I can recall a game that I played where I didn't make content out of, other than like retro games. I have played games like Contra and stuff like that at my friend's house, which we talked about. But sitting here going, hey, I'm just going to play this game and I'm never going to make any content out of it ever, I can't think of the last time that has happened. I'm sure it's happened, but just off the top of my head, I can't recall. How do you think the trophy system can be improved? What are some features that you would like to see implemented? I guess there's a debate, and there's always been a debate with trophy hunters about being able to delete or hide your trophies when you have more than 1%. So like, let's say you're sitting at 50% and then you want to hide or delete those. This has been a debate that's been going on forever. That's not necessarily a feature that I would like to see implemented, because I know I can just play across multiple accounts, right? I decide which games I want to put on my trophy profile and which ones I don't. So that's how I tackle it. However, it wouldn't be completely something I would go against, because there are times where you're playing a game, you're 50% through it, a patch comes through, you download the patch, and then it breaks the freaking trophy hunt. And now you can, you might be able to get to 97% completion of the campaign, but then you can't get the last trophy, and it has nothing to do with you. Right? Those games, I think PlayStation should allow us to get rid of, because it's not our fault. Okay. And that's the only way that I can see hiding and deleting trophies that I would be cool with. But if it came out and other trophy hunters used it, I wouldn't care, because it's the same thing that I'm doing on my alternate accounts. They would just be able to do on one account. So we're both doing the same thing, just a different way. But I do think that if it's Sony's fault or the developer's fault, I don't think we should be penalized as trophy hunters. Same thing goes for online trophies, getting back to Red Dead Redemption 2. If Rockstar came out and said, look, we've got these multiplayer trophies in our game, these online trophies, but when the servers are shut down, if you have all the other trophies, we're just going to give you the platinum, and you don't have to go get the online trophies, because we've taken that online aspect out of the game. And it's not your fault, so we're just going to give you the trophy. Then I would be cool with that. I think that's reasonable. But I think when your servers get shut down, man, and now you can't get the trophies, I think that sucks. And some of you may disagree with that, but then you surely will agree with this, that maybe online trophies and campaign related trophies should be 2 separate lists, very similar to how they do DLC. It's always a separate list. And then the online trophies should not be required for platinum. I think that's fair. So then that would just be treated more like a DLC. So I would love to see that changed. I would also like to see less trophies. I think trying to get 40 trophies in the game or 50 trophies in the game ends up being some pretty, I don't want to say dumb trophies, but you know, killing 50 enemies at a checkpoint is kind of dumb. You know, now of course they probably want you to get those 50 kills across the entire game. But you know, as trophy hunters, sometimes we just like to farm them and get them out of the way, especially for me when I make guides. I like for all of our trophies to pop at the same time. So I'm down for less trophies, but with an increase in difficulty. And I know some of you are not going to agree with that, but let's just be honest, man. Most of these trophies are extremely simple to get. Maybe not easy. I would say simple in the fact that, what's a good example? I don't know, maybe like Rebirth right now. There's little objectives you have to do when you're killing enemies sometimes. That's what I mean by simple. Even though some of that stuff can be tricky to do because you may not have the correct materia, you know, spell to be able to use, that sort of thing. So there is some planning, but it's just simple. You know, kill 5 enemies with a headshot with a pistol. Simple, simple, simple. I would rather not have an abundance of those and just have like 4 or 5, you know, I wouldn't even say average difficulty, above average difficulty to even extremely hard. I would rather have that than all the little miscellaneous silly trophies. That's just me. And like I said earlier, I would love to have more permadeath trophies and things like that, but you got to get your hardware and software working right. I don't want the game to crash and me be penalized for it. I think the perfect system or the perfect trophy, if you're going to have some kind of hard difficulty, is something like Dead Space. Wasn't there a trophy for completing the game on the hardest difficulty or something, but you had 3 saves? It was something like that. I think that's fair. You got to give me a chance to save because your hardware and your software might be jacked, right? So I need at least an opportunity to save, or maybe be able to do backup saves as many times as I want, something like that. I gotta have a get out of jail free card, man, when it comes to these games, because your games ain't working, that's not my fault. And glitches are the same way. But if they could guarantee that that stuff would be intact all the way through, I would shoot for more permadeath trophies for me personally, because I just think that's pretty challenging. And that stuff, permadeath stuff, is that's how I played games back in the day. You know, we would challenge each other to get through the game without getting hit. I know that no hit running now is like a big thing, but I've been no hit running since I was a kid. Me and my friends did that stuff just on a Friday night. And again, things like permadeath. Can you beat the game without dying? This is all stuff we did to entertain ourselves back in the day. So for me, less trophies, more difficulty, maybe a way to get rid of a game that's not our fault, right? An issue with the game that's not our fault, whether it be the online trophies or just something on the developer side of thing where they've glitched a trophy with an update and now we can't get it. I don't think we should pay the price for that. Is there any game you regret not getting a platinum for? Maybe it was too time consuming, difficult, or the servers were shut down. There's definitely never been a game that I've put down because it was too time consuming. I think that's probably the last thing on my list that I would use as a reason to quit a game, right? I'm willing to put in the time. Even when I was working full time back in the day at like a corporate job, I would find time to play when I got home. And I don't care if it took 6 months to get through the game. I had no problem doing it. But being time consuming is not a problem. Difficult, again, I don't know how you guys are defining difficult. I really have never had a trophy hunt. I'm trying to think. There's never really been a trophy hunt on my end that's been too difficult. I don't think I've ever quit a trophy hunt because I said I can't raise my skill level high enough to overcome this challenge. I think I've always been able to do that. And most of the time I just do it by outthinking the game. I don't even have to get better at the game. I'm just outsmart the developers and get their trophy that way. Maybe there has been one, but I can't think of it off the top of my head now. And then servers being shut down. I can't think of anything where the servers were shut down, but that's mainly because I just don't do a lot of online games. I know The Last of Us on the old channel, part 1, because part 2 is on the current channel. I was writing an individual's, well, not an individual, but trophy guides for that game, you know, little 2-3 minute videos. And I was covering all the trophies. And if I remember correctly, it's probably in that playlist where I made an announcement about it. But I'm pretty sure that I stopped trophy hunting that game because I lost the save file got corrupted, which is another thing I cannot stand. Going back to that previous video, the previous question, that's another reason why I should be able to take your game off my profile when your saves don't work, which is why a lot of people, I guess a lot of people don't understand why I put backup saves in our RTC guides, but that's why. It's people say, oh man, you're safety saving too much. I don't want to safety save every 5 minutes. And then you'll hear them when it finally happens to them and they lose their save data, they wish they had that backup save. Because that's happened to me so many times. I said, you know, from now on, if I can use backup saves in any of the games I cover, it's going to be in there. But I think I lost like in The Last of Us Part 1, maybe 6 or 7 chapters worth of progress. And I was just like, no, you know, I trusted a Naughty Dog. They've always been good to me with games. So that's why, you know, was playing their game, trophy hunting out the gate. And when that happened, I was like, no, I'm good. You know, maybe I'll come back to it down the line, which I'm sure we will. I'm sure we'll cover The Last of Us Part 1 since we have Part 2 on the channel. Especially since the rumors are saying that there may be a Part 3. We'll kind of have to have the first one on the channel, and I'm willing to revisit it now because it's patched up. But I know I've lost multiple trophy hunts due to just data corruption with saves. But I don't think I've ever lost one to server shutdown. Most of the games that I start, guys, even on my older profiles, it was with the intent to get the platinum. I think early on, I just didn't understand what trophy hunting really was, and I would let a few of them get through. But now, yeah, I don't start games unless I intend to get the platinum. So I will research things like how long is it going to take, you know, are the servers shut down, anything glitched, before I even fire up the trophy hunt. Right, I have to know that I can at least get everything. And then whether or not I can increase my skill level enough or outsmart the game, that's a whole different ball game. But I want to know that I can at least get all the trophies, if that makes sense. Coke or Pepsi? Someone else asked this question as well. I don't drink either one of them. I did drink them a lot when I was a kid. I was an athlete growing up and I drank caffeinated drinks. I know that sounds insane, but that's what I did. And I got some medical problems and things of that nature, and they told me to lay off the caffeine, so I did. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I drink caffeinated drinks every now and again. Like I went to a restaurant yesterday and had some lunch and drank Mountain Dew, I believe. But most of the time, like 98% of the time, I'm drinking water. I'll put some kind of flavored lemonade in there or something like that and drink it, because I can't just drink straight water. I find that disgusting. So it has to have some kind of flavor in it. But yeah, as far as Coke or Pepsi, guys, it's been so long since I've had either one of those like near each other. Maybe I had a Coke 3 months ago, but I had a Pepsi a year and a half ago. That I don't even know the difference between the taste. If my memory is correct, Coke has a stronger flavor than Pepsi. Maybe I'm getting that wrong too. And I know some people would argue that they taste the same, but I feel like they do have a difference in taste. But if I had to pick one, Coke or Pepsi, I guess I would go with the stronger one, which I think is Coke. But if it's not, I'm going to go with the stronger one. When is the guide for Final Fantasy Rebirth coming? If you're supporting me on YouTube or Patreon, you have two options to get it before it hits the channel publicly, right? So instant access is for Crazy 88 members. They pay $9 a month or $8.88 a month. It rounds to $9. And they get instant access. So let's say I finish putting together the content for Rebirth in the next 45 days. On day 46, they get access. Not just to the playlist, right? They get access to the workbook with full timestamps and the visual guide all the way through, okay? And then of course they can start trophy hunting that day. Okay. Let's say it takes another month for us to get to the next season. You guys know we run our channel in seasons, and we decide that we want to drop Rebirth in the next season. Then Division 12 members, they pay $5 a month, will get access to the full playlist on the first day that episode 1 and 0 go live on the main channel, right? The main channel, guys, we have to space out these videos and put them out episodically, you know, every other day or something like that, because we have to stay in YouTube's algorithm, right? If we just posted the whole playlist on one day, then we would go several months with nothing else hitting the channel. So from a business standpoint, I have to space the content out. But for members, they get it all in one shot, right? Super early in instant access, or the day it goes public in early access. And, you know, I just feel like that's fair, because if you support the channel more financially, you get the trophy guide quicker, right? And that's just how I feel like it's fair. So it really depends. If you're talking about from a membership standpoint, instant access within the next 2 months, probably. And then early access, it's going to be longer than that. And then of course on the main channel, it's just when we can fit it into a future season. Dormouse03, I mentioned you earlier. What games have been most influential for you? Which ones have you found to be the most personally meaningful that have helped your journey as a gamer, or maybe even your life, and why? Well, obviously, Final Fantasy VII Original. First game I beat on my own. I mean, you never forget that. Bionic Commando for the NES back in the day. That's the first game I beat at a friend's house. I think I actually brought this story up on the old channel in some episode of The Dose somewhere. But I went to a friend's house. He was having trouble beating this game. I had never played it. He told me about it. He was like, you should come over and beat it. But it was like a family event. It wasn't like we were just in his room playing it. We went out to eat, came home. It was him, his brother, his sister, his parents, and I think it was his grandmother, I believe. We were all in his living room playing this game. Or I mean, I was playing it, and I had never played it before. They were watching me learn it, get better at it, get better at it, get better at it, and then I beat it. It was like this thing. I mean, I had never experienced that before. Of course, I had, you know, played games at my cousin's house and stuff like that, and we had beaten games, but not at like I don't want to say a stranger, because he was my friend, but you get my point. Outside of the family, this was new. And then to have his parents watching and stuff like that, it was just weird, but I loved it. It was a great moment for me. Contra. This is not the first game I beat at the arcade, because I had beaten games before. But you know, a lot of times, guys, you can beat these games at the arcade because you just keep shoving quarters in them, right? Like the beat 'em ups and Simpsons and stuff like that. But I remember this was the first game I beat in an arcade on 1 quarter, was Contra. And I actually did it maybe 8 years ago, 7 years ago, something like that. And it wasn't at a traditional arcade like a Dave & Buster's or Chuck E. Cheese or something like that. The place where I used to work, we had a bunch of warehouses there, and there was a guy next door that had a warehouse, and inside of his warehouse was like an arcade. He had putt-putt in there and a DJ booth, and he had drinks and snack machines and all kinds of stuff. And every now and again, he would open it up to family and friends, and we were invited over there one night, and I was like, heck yeah, I'm going. You know, he had NBA Jam, he had Contra. I mean, he had a bunch of arcade machines. So the first place I went, straight to the Contra machine. And of course, he had it where you didn't have to put in quarters. So when I say I beat it on 1 quarter, I didn't physically put a quarter in, but I didn't continue or do anything like that, right? I played it on 1 life. And that was the first game I had ever beat in an arcade on 1 quarter. Plus, Contra is one of my favorite games. So that was quite monumental for me. And everybody was crowding around, like, you know, watching me get through it. So I thought it was pretty cool. So Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, I remember playing those in the grocery store. Well, actually, sorry, Street Fighter in the grocery store. They wouldn't let, at least in my grocery store, they wouldn't let Mortal Kombat in there because of all of the blood. But you could play it at the bowling alley. I played it there. But I think the first time I played NBA Jam was at the beach. And I remember, you know, we would get like $20 to be able to do whatever we wanted to. That's what we would get like per day. And we would stay like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. and that was kind of like our allowance. So of course we were going to play games with the whole 20 because, you know, whatever. And I remember we were going down looking for different arcades, and you saw this huge line outside. I mean, it looked like somebody had died, or like, you know, something was going on, maybe a concert or something, right? But it was everybody lined up to play one game. It was freaking NBA Jam. I mean, that game was so good at the arcade. And then I remember being pretty let down when I got the SNES version. I mean, it was still okay, but it wasn't the arcade. Of course, limitations of the consoles, I get it. But yeah, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter. Of course, with Mortal Kombat, you got the realistic look of the game with the blood, you know, and the fatalities. That was all fresh. So those 3 games are pretty cool. Uncharted, obviously. I mean, that's what started my trophy hunting journey. That's why we're all here now, and that's why you guys are listening to me talk for this long. It's all because of old Nathan Drake. And I would say another moment for me that I may get emotional telling this story, that I'll never forget is, I remember one Friday night I was supposed to go spend the night with my brother's friend. And of course, my brother was going to be there too. And this dude had a NES, right? He had Castlevania, he had Contra, he had Mega Man, he had Zelda. I mean, he had Jackal. I mean, he had all the freaking good games. And we didn't have that. We didn't grow up very wealthy. So we got stuff years later. My parents would save for it and get us. But by the time we got it, like the next console was coming out, right? And so we didn't have it. And I wanted to play those games so bad. We had an Atari, but I was so bummed out that my parents came into my room probably about 6:30 or so. They said, well, let's hop in the car. Let's just go riding. So they took me out to eat, you know, to Pizza Hut. You guys know I love pizza. And I got to play the arcade there because there was always an arcade game at the pizza place. And I thought that was cool. I was like, man, this is enough. But then they took me down to the pharmacy, because you could buy games at the pharmacy too back then. And they said, pick out any game you want. And I don't know, I saw Kangaroo, like the cover. And I was like, that's the game. I don't even know what it was about. I mean, obviously a kangaroo, but I didn't know what I was going to do in that game. But I just thought it looked cool, and they got it for me. And it wasn't this like babysitting tool. It wasn't like they wanted to do something that weekend and they just wanted to lock me up in the room on a Friday night to tend to myself. They came into the room with me, man, and like sat down on the edge of my bed and watched me play for several hours. And then like my dad tried to play the game and my mom tried to play the game, and we were all trying to get the score and all this kind of stuff. And I'll never forget that. Till the day I die. I'm gonna get emotional if I keep talking about it, because I lost my father a few years ago, so I'm gonna jet off of this topic. But yeah, those are the games that have been very defining in my life. What's your life like outside of making platinum guides? We kind of touched on this earlier, but I pretty much stay at home. I need that time to write the guides. Like I said, 300 hours a month is no joke, and I will spend time with my best friend and his family. They're nice enough to have me up several times a year, and we'll do some things. But outside of that, guys, I pretty much stay at home and work. How about a picture or video to put a face to the voice who has been helping us platinum games for all these years? Again, we talked about this earlier. I have posted one picture of my face online, but it wasn't my face. It wasn't my whole face. It was just a picture of my eye, because I got shingles in my eye several years ago. And I did post that, so that's about the best I can offer you. What is your process for streamlining your playthrough for a guide? Again, we touched on this earlier. 5 stages of production: route, optimization, practice, record, edit. If you want to get into detail with certain games, check out the Breaking series right here over on Patreon, and you guys can see exactly how I break things down in detail. What is your favorite platinum/game? Again, we got to go with Uncharted, guys. That was what started it all. It's not my favorite game of all time. You guys know my favorite game of all time is Final Fantasy VII, the original. Do you have a list full of games that you want to make guides for? If so, which games do you want to cover the most? I don't really have a list at this stage in the game, and we've talked about this earlier. Outside of online trophies and stuff like that, I'm pretty much down to cover whatever you guys want. And I say you guys in terms of like the members, right? They pick the games and vote for the games. Obviously, I am allowing Crazy 88 members, we talked about this earlier, to be able to suggest games now through the Hateful Eight collection. So that's going to help me gauge which games to cover. But as far as me having a list, not so much. What has been the most rewarding experience you've had creating content for this channel? It's always going to be the same answer, guys. I like helping people and meeting new people. Now, obviously, we talked about this earlier. I don't really have a lot of time to socialize, quote unquote, in real life, but even though I consider the internet real life, you guys know what I mean. I do like to meet a lot of people online. And in fact, that's where I meet most of the people that I interact with is online. Of course, my friend that I was telling you guys about has friends that he connects with in his area, and I've met some of them and I'm good friends with them. But most of the people that I meet are online. And it's getting a little bit more difficult now to meet people because we're growing to like truly interact with people. And I think that's the thing that I hate most about growth, is the fact that I can't have the level of interaction that I can have when the community is small. Believe it or not, I would rather us not grow so that I can keep a tight connection with all of you. If we wake up tomorrow, guys, and we have 1 million subscribers, I mean, stuff like this is going to have to go away. I just won't have the time. There won't be time to interact. My goal has always been to get enough funding through Patreon and YouTube coming in every month with the least amount of subscribers, right? So that I can make enough money to pay my bills and still interact with the smaller community. But, you know, unless some things change over the next year and a half or so, it looks like I'm going to have to grow the community to get that level of support. But when that happens, the personal connections go away. What are your hobbies and why do you have so much time doing all that? I'm assuming well, I mean, obviously you're asking two questions. I think the second question is, how do I have so much time to make the guides, is what I think you mean by that. Hobbies, I like listening to new music, new artists, any genre. I like all music, doesn't matter. Recently I've been getting into Sleep Token a lot. I've been liking their band. Again, I like movies, not so much new movies, unless it's just a few times a year. Mainly I'm watching movies that I've seen before. And I love documentaries. You guys know this if you follow my old channel. I could watch a documentary every single second of the day. So any kind of documentary is cool with me. And then why do you have so much time doing all that? Again, I think you're talking about making the guides. I've just made the time to do them. Again, 300 hours a month is no joke. And to do that, I have to have financial support from the members. And then I just take my money that I've saved up over the years and I use that to offset all the cost I need for, you know, the channel and my life. And then when that money runs out, I mean, there you go. That's the end of the channel. So I hopefully that answers your questions. If not, let me know in the comment about what you meant by the second question and I'll try to answer that for you. Which state are you from and do you like it there? I have told people online which state I live in. I'm not going to say it in this video because, you know, for reasons, but it's out there. If you search hard enough, you can find it. I will tell you that I live in the United States on the East Coast and I do like living here. What topics interest you most outside of your work on the YouTube channel? Also, what are your hobbies? Well, we've already discussed my hobbies. I like music and movies, documentary, stuff like that. I'm also an artist. That's probably the topic that I'm finding myself being interested in more and more and more these days. I think the last time I drew a picture was high school. And recently have found myself watching YouTube videos, artists, you know, painting and stuff like that. And that has really started to pick up some interest for me. I would love to get into drawing again. It's something I used to do every single day. And I could potentially turn that into part of my business here at Square One Games where, you know, you guys could commission artwork from me, right? You would tell me, hey, draw this picture and I would draw it and then you would pay a fee for me to draw that work for you. I think that would be cool. But just on a side note, even if I couldn't turn it into a part of our revenue stream here, just being able to draw again, I think that's a topic that I found interesting over the last, I would say, about 3 months. The amount of art videos that I've watched is insane. Drawing is such a relaxing thing for me, just like writing guides. Not stressed writing guides ever. I'm stressed when I'm writing a guide and somebody asks me, when is it going to be finished? Why aren't you done yet? That stresses me out because it feels like I'm doing something wrong, even though I know I'm not. It makes me feel like I have to rush. But with drawing, especially if I'm not commissioned to do anything and it's just on my own, you know, I can do it in a day. I can do it in 4 days. I can do it in 4 weeks. And it's just so relaxing. It's just you and the pen, man, or you and the pencil, and the paper, and just the freedom to create and to draw whatever you want to draw. And I find that stuff to be very relaxing. What was your favorite platinum to do? I'm gonna answer this 2 ways. Obviously, Uncharted was my favorite platinum because it's the game that started it all. But I think you're asking, like, what is my favorite guide that I've done? I would have to say, again, I mean, it depends on how you're defining it, right? It could be games like Ghost of Tsushima or even Final Fantasy VII Rebirth right now because it has all the collectibles and all that kind of stuff. But when I really think about it, I think it's going to be games in the Dark Souls franchise, even Sekiro, Bloodborne, because these games are considered to be difficult for players. Even though I don't personally think they're that difficult, but that's just the way that I approach the game. I think a lot of times gamers are defeated playing these games before they even start because they've watched a live stream or they've listened to other people talk about this game and say it's the hardest game ever made or whatever, or games ever made. And so they're defeated before they even start. So being able to lock that down or those games down in a RTC guide and bring it to the viewers, bring it to the trophy hunters, and then let them see that it's like not that bad. I mean, yeah, there's some difficult spikes in there and stuff, and some of the bosses might be tricky, but you can get through it if you apply a little bit of smarts to it, right? Play a certain way, and you know, not really rely on your skill as much as you would think you would need to, right? Try to focus on what you can do to get to the game from a mental standpoint, right? Push through it that way, which is what I like to teach. Then it's not so bad. And I've had several people in our community say that I didn't think I would ever be able to get through one of these games, and now I've just beat them all, and not just beat them, but got the platinum in all of them. So thanks for that. So knowing that I can help players on what is considered to be a difficult game, just be able to push through it and it not be that bad. Those are some of my favorite platinums to write a guide for. What is your favorite movie/show? Movie, I don't know. This changes, man. Well, let me explain it to you like this. There's the greats, right? Your Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Blade Runner, Terminator. I mean, you guys know Rocky. I mean, Back to the Future. You know them, right? But my favorite movie, believe it or not, of all time is Casino. I absolutely love this movie, right? I like the whole mobster thing, and you know, it's based on a true story, you know, take some liberties here and there. I like the actors in it, right? Just the pacing of the film, the way they deliver it. I love that movie. As far as shows, I really don't watch shows that much. I think the last show I watched was House of Cards, I think, on Netflix. And prior to that, I think, at least all the way through, was Lost. And before that, I really can't remember. Of course, I mean, I grew up on shows like The Cosby Show. Some of you will remember this, TGIF. I think it stood for Thank Goodness It's Friday, I believe. But like, I don't know, there's probably 4 to 6 shows that came out that night. Whatever those shows were, that's what I watched. I mean, they were considered the thing. I remember Perfect Strangers, Full House, Family Matters, I believe is what it was called. Those kind of shows. That's what I grew up on. And then of course the next day you had the cartoons Saturday morning. So you have Friday night TGIF, and then Saturday morning you wake up with the cereal and you watch cartoons from like 7:30 to about lunch. You know, X-Men, those kind of cartoons, Transformers. I mean, dude, back then it was, man, I loved it. So, but as far as shows, like, I don't really get into shows that much. Like I said, Lost and House of Cards, I think those were the last 2 that I watched. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? I have no idea. Also, Coke or Pepsi? We answered this one earlier. What do you think about the future of this channel and how big do you think you can make it? Well, I mean, like I said, I can guarantee you guys content until the end of next year, 100%. I'm going to bang out as many guides as I can. And like I said, I'm going to control what I can do on my end. Whatever you guys decide to do on your end, that's your choice. But just know that as we go into 2026, I'm going to have to make some adjustments to the channel if we haven't met the funding goal, which again, I'm going to lay that out for you guys in a future video. And you'll know exactly what the number is, and we'll figure out the details, and I'll show you guys how easy it is to get there if we just work together. But yeah, without you guys' support, going into 2026, we're either talking about complete shutdown of the channel or a drastic change in the way that we do things in terms of our business model. I don't want to do that, but like I said, I will have no other choice. As far as growth, I mean, I guess at this point we're going to have to grow, because out of the 10,000 subscribers we only have about 140 that supports. So unless that just drastically changes, I'm going to have to increase the subscriber count to get a higher number so I can get a fraction of that audience to hopefully support on these platforms. And then, like I said, the downside of that is that we grow and then we lose kind of this personal connection that we have now, which will suck. But again, I have to do what's best for the business. So I guess to fully answer your question, I mean, I have high hopes for the channel. I would not be doing this if I didn't think the community could show a certain level of support to keep it all running. Do I think we can make it? Yes, but it's not up to me. At the end of the day, man, I can't just go outside and hit a tree and money fall out of it. You know what I mean? And if I go out and get a job, it's less time working on the guides. So, I mean, you guys know where that's going to go. So I'm going to have to drastically change the way we do things or just leave. Does the channel make enough to be your main source of income? Not even close. In my area, minimum wage is $7.25. Okay. I don't make that. Like I said, I made last year, I calculate, I mean, look, I can't be down to the penny, but it was about $1.75 an hour. It might be like more like $2.25. Again, I'm just doing some rough math in my head, but it's not $7.25 an hour, right? I would at least have to be making $7.25 an hour, guys, right? What I can make working just a regular job to stay. But even then, when you factor in, working 300 hours a month. Now, if I were truly making $7.25 an hour at 300 hours a month, that's one thing. But a lot of times the math doesn't work out that way either. Like I might make $1,000 in a month, but when you factor in that I'm working 300 hours, now you're talking $3 and some change per hour. So because I work so many hours, it's hard to get to $7.25 an hour because of the work that has to be put in. So right now, like I said, we're bringing in about maybe $800 a month, but we're not close. Okay, we're not even halfway there. Okay, so it's a big hurdle. And like I said, we're going to take some incremental steps to get there. I'm going to set some goals and challenge you guys to really think about the channel. And if you want to see us successful and you want to see us still be here in 2026, I'm going to lay out a plan that you guys can team up together and commit to, and then it'll all be okay. You guys have the power to change my life in the next 24 hours, the next 48 hours, the next week. I mean, I know it's very cliche, but we got 10,000 people. If everybody gave $1, we'd be at $10,000 a month, which I don't even want that much. I think right now, if we had about 300 members across both platforms, we would be close, right? Especially if they were in the $9 tier. Again, we're going to give you guys some detailed math soon. But it's just that easy. Out of 10,000, if we had about 300 people showing support, give or take, we'd be okay. And I was hoping that we would already be at that threshold by now, being that it's been like 6 years. But again, I haven't really marketed it that well, and that's been on purpose because I was hoping that I wouldn't have to turn our channel into a bunch of ads, right? But unfortunately, we're there now, and I'm going to do my best to limit the ads for Patreon and YouTube, but you guys are going to start seeing more of that stuff in videos and one-off videos that advertise. I know they're probably going to get disliked and hated, but I have no choice. I got to get this information out because I want to make sure that when 2026 hits, none of you can say, well, you didn't tell us. You didn't let us know. So I'm going to drill it home to the community once we do this rollout and get everything started, probably every Saturday in a video or either on the community tab, like every week, I should say. You're going to know exactly where we stand, how far we are away from the goal, how many more people we need to commit. And, you know, at the end of this journey, I'll be able to look back and say to myself, I did everything that I knew how to do. I made as many guides as I could. I ran my platforms as best I could. I gave the people all the information, right? The community, and they have decided the fate of Square One Games. It's out of my hands. And if I can look back on it at that point, even if I have to walk away knowing that I put us in the best position possible, then I can walk away and not have any regrets, right? Or change the business model and not have any regrets, because I would know at that point that I did everything I could, right? So it's really up to you guys as far as the future of the channel goes. I think we can be as big as we want to be in terms of subscribers. I mean, some of the bigger trophy channels have 500,000 plus subscribers. Some of them even have 1 million. So there's a lot of these people that we can, pull from in terms of growing our community. Like, the numbers are out there. Once we start putting our guides on maybe some of these sites and all that traffic is already there, and then boom, they come over here, then you just never know. I am not going to sit here and say that we couldn't hit 1 million subscribers, because I'm a dreamer, man. I believe we can do anything we want to do. I just don't know if I want to hit 1 million subscribers. I think if I had 1 million subscribers right now, I don't think I would want that. I think I would lose what I like about this channel, which is being able to connect with you guys like this. That goes away with that many subscribers, man. It would be unreal. Nor do I want to deal with 1 million people's problems and questions and all that kind of stuff either. I mean, more money, more problems. Obviously, if we had 1 million subscribers, we'd be making a lot of money per month on Patreon and YouTube. But do I want to make that amount of money? No. I want to make enough to, pay my bills, put a little bit back in the banking account for a rainy day, and build up for my retirement, which is probably what most of you are wanting to do with your money, if you're older like me. So I want the same thing that you guys want. We want guides. We want to make sure our families and our livelihoods are good, and we all want the same thing. I'm ready to bring that to you guys as best I can. The question is whether or not you want to bring that to me. And unfortunately, I can't make that decision for you guys. I'd like to know your favorite game, the original Final Fantasy VII. What convinced you to make trophy hunting content and be one of the most detailed one at best? Again, Battlefield 3, I told you guys a story earlier. Couldn't find the trophy, lack of guides on the internet, lack of good instructions, clickbait, poor thumbnails, or I should say clickbait thumbnails, all that stuff, I don't know if tags are really important anymore, but there was people who used to spam tags in their comment section, pin it, inappropriate tags, misleading tags, all this stuff. I should be able to put into YouTube what I want to find an answer for, and in the first 3 results, I should be able to get my answer. And back then, that wasn't the case. So I said, bump it. I'm gonna do my own thing. What are your top 5 or top 10 favorite games of all time? If I'm being honest with you guys, this list changes all the time. I may have even done a video in the past where I detail my list of favorite games, but I don't remember them now, and I'll tell you why. Because again, it changes based on the mood I'm in. I've noticed that over time. I don't have like a hard list written down. If I'm talking to somebody and we're reminiscing about the old days, we're talking about the NES, and then this person says, what's your top 10 favorite games of all time? It can be any platform. I'm probably going to name more NES games than any other platform, because that's what we're talking about. And I attach memories to games. So for me, it's not really the game itself that I find so fascinating. It's the moment in time, the emotion I was feeling at that particular moment that I connect with that game. So it's the emotion or the feeling I had that I consider to be the top 10 favorite emotions that I've ever had, or feelings that I've ever had. It just so happens that that's attached to a game. And so if I were talking to somebody about horror movies, or not horror movies, but like horror games, and they said, what's your top 10 games of all time? I mean, I don't know, probably Resident Evil would be in there. What's your top 10 games of all time? If we were just talking about RPGs, then of course Final Fantasy 7 is going to be in there, but I might throw in Final Fantasy 10, right? So for me, it's very hard for me to put up a set list. I know this is what every gamer wants to know about every other gamer, but my list is pretty, I don't, like I said, it's all over the place, man. It depends on the moment in time that I'm currently in, how I'm feeling, and what we're talking about. That could drastically change the games that I enjoy. But obviously Mario games, they were impactful in my life. Contra, Castlevania, I mean, Jesus Christ, all the Final Fantasy games. I mean, those type of games are always going to be impactful to me. Journey, that game was extremely impactful for me. And if I had to make a top 10 list, it would definitely be up there. And it was just a few hours long, and it had no dialogue and just sound effects and music. But my God, that game was great. So again, I don't want to make a list or list anything, because if I did, guys, a month from now, if you asked me, you would think I was lying to you, because the list would be changed. Most painfully long Souls-like platinum trophy you ever got or did on the channel. Neo 2. 8 playthroughs to make that guide. This is just practice playthroughs. There was obviously some other playthroughs I had to make to, route the guide and learn the game and stuff like that. But Neo freaking 2, man, ooh, baby, that game was insane. All the RNG, I mean, the whole game was basically RNG, right? Everything was a roll of the dice. Man, it was a very tough game. I would finish the game. I would, have my notes down. I would follow my visual guide to a T, and I could not get the same results. And then I would fix it, play it all the way back through, could not get the same results. And I finally got to like the 6th, 7th, and 8th run through, play through the game, and got similar results. And I was like, okay, finally, we're done. I think outside of Neo 2, Dark Souls 3 was not a very long platinum. I think it was only like 25 hours long or something, but 12 hours of that was farming, because I had to make the guide for you guys to be able to farm offline. You can farm online, and I think it might be quicker if the online is like jumping with a bunch of people, but I couldn't test it because I had to build a guide so that it would survive when the servers got shut down. So I had to show you guys how to painfully farm for those covenant items. So like 50% of the guide is farming, and that's it's horrible. And I know you guys complain about it, but I had to do it 3 times, each time I played through the game to practice. So it was, 36 hours of farming for me across multiple playthroughs. So those two, Neo 2 and Dark Souls 3, are the ones that were extremely painful on this channel. Any chance for a Final Fantasy X-2 guide? Yes. Again, it goes back to what we talked about earlier. I should have packaged Final Fantasy X and X-2 together, and going forward, we're going to start doing that. So when you guys finally see Uncharted 2 kind of hitting the channel, just be ready, because it's going to be packaged with 3, 4, and Lost Legacy, right? So yes, there will be a guide for that on the channel at some point in the future. Since you've been playing games, what are the top 5 games you love playing the most? Again, we've talked about this. All your heavy hitters, right? Your Mega Man, Zelda, Contra, Mario, all these games, guys. I'm always going to say that these are the best. Obviously, the Final Fantasy games. Any RPG that came out on the SNES, I love those games, right? Lufia, oh my God, Lufia 1 and 2. I remember playing those games when I had pink eye because I worked at a summer care program. I was one of the directors out there, and one of my kids had pink eye and gave it to me. So of course I got the day off of work. I remember going home and playing, I think I was playing Lufia 2. I'd already beat Lufia 1, and then I was on Lufia 2, and I was like, well, it sucks that I can barely see and my eyes in pain, but I'm playing them games. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I don't know if I want to nail it down to 5 specific games or a genre of games. I just love playing games, man. And it just depends on the day, what mood I'm in. I pretty much like all the games, man. What was your first platinum trophy you ever earned? That would be Uncharted. That was the first platinum. That's what started everything. What was your favorite Souls game to platinum, and do you plan on playing Lies of P? Dark Souls 1 is still to this day my favorite Souls game, and even if you're talking about Souls-like games, that's still my favorite. I personally do not like Dark Souls 2. I like Dark Souls 3, but not as much as Dark Souls 1. And I like Bloodborne and Sekiro for their own reasons. I do not compare them to Dark Souls 1. So Dark Souls 1 for me is my favorite. Although Demon Souls was the first Souls game that I completed, right? And I did that before the remake or the remaster that came out. I did the original, right? I played that back in the day. But Dark Souls to me is going to always be my favorite in the Dark Souls franchise. That's going to be, and yes, I'll eventually play and cover Lies of P. Is there any guide that was made on the basis of hate due to difficulty or RNG of the game itself? I've never started a game hating it. When I used to trophy hunt personally, I never played games that I hated. I don't understand why any trophy hunter would do that outside of maybe just the sheer challenge of it all. But for me, I got to at least somewhat like the game to trophy hunt it. You know, games like Neo 2, I hated Neo 2 by the time I was done with it. I don't know if I would have hated Neo 2 had I played it just regularly. I think it probably could have been a fantastic game for me. But when you trophy hunt a game, it's a different experience. And because I didn't play that game casually first, because I'm a YouTuber, so I have to kind of just get in there and trophy hunt sometimes, I didn't like it, you know? And I've used the word hate, I think, publicly before about that game. My memory of that game is just RNG, multiple playthrough. So I didn't make it because I hated it, but by the end of it, I definitely didn't like it. What's been the most rewarding thing about being a YouTuber? Meeting and helping people, you know. Obviously, like I said earlier, the challenge is that as we grow, I'm not going to be able to do that as much. And that's the one thing that I don't like about growing as a community, but it's inevitable. We're going to have to grow, I think, to get these numbers up and get some more revenue flowing into the channel. So I'm going to have to do some marketing and build our numbers up. But meeting and helping people, that's why I started, and that's why I'm still here today. What inspired you to start making videos? Like I said earlier, lack of guides, and it all started with Battlefield 3. Will you be doing guides on the Stalker series? Again, it's really up to Patreon and YouTube members. They have 2 polls they participate in, the Hateful Eight and the X Games. Obviously, if it wins, I'm happy to cover it. It seems like it's a series. I don't know how many games are in the series. I'm unfamiliar with that game. But if there's like 2 or 3 games in the series, we'd obviously try to tackle them all at once if possible, just to make sure we get all that content up on the channel. But it's really out of my hands. I work for you guys. Whatever you guys say is what I do. So if that game gets into a poll and you know the votes push it through and it wins, I'm happy to cover it. Have you considered doing a guide for the Assassin's Creed series? On my old channel, I actually covered, I think 2 or 3 Assassin's Creed games. I know I covered Assassin's Creed. Actually, I covered more than, I covered Assassin's Creed 2, 3, Black Flag, and Origins. I think I've covered 4, but and I covered one of those. I know I covered Black Flag as an RTC guide, and I think I covered Assassin's Creed 3 as an RTC guide. But I think that's the only time I've dabbled in the Assassin's Creed series outside of just playing it for myself. Yes, obviously. Yeah, I would consider doing all the Assassin's Creed games. I think some of them do have online trophies and the servers may be shut down. So again, that might be a hurdle we would have to kind of figure out. But if, you know, like I said, if it wins a poll, you know, and that's what the people want, then I'm happy to bring it to you guys. Can you make guides for the Borderlands franchise, mainly Borderlands 2? Like I said earlier, we would never cover Borderlands 2 going forward unless we covered the first one. I don't know if there's any other games in that franchise. I feel like there's some offshoot games or something. Maybe it was DLC that I'm thinking of. But yeah, if the two games in the franchise is Borderlands 1 and Borderlands 2, and that's the main games, then if we ever covered it, which again, I'm happy to cover it if it wins a poll, they would probably be in the poll at the same time. When will we get a survivor guide for non-patrons? That game was actually in our backlog. So when I finished it, I didn't release it in instant access, and then early access. I just gave it to everybody, because back then when they voted for games, we didn't have instant and early access. So I just, gave it to everybody, regardless of how much investment they were paying each month to these membership programs. But you guys, as non-patrons on the public channel, you will get this guide in next season. So when I'm done with Rebirth and we start the next season, I'll give you guys the date when it's going to drop, and then how often it's going to drop. But I got it done, I don't know, several months ago. I finished it. I had a little bit of free time and wrote that guide and got that out of our backlog. So yes, you guys will get it. It's not exclusive to members. They just get early access to it, guys. But yeah, just look for it in the next season. Will you make a guide for Cyberpunk 2077? Yes. I don't know why we haven't covered this game yet, because it's been in several of the old tournaments and it's been in polls, but every single time, guys, for whatever reason, members keep kicking it out of these polls and tournaments. So when they push it through, I'm happy to cover it. What's your real name and where are you from? Again, I'm not going to share my real name, but I am from the United States and I'm on the East Coast. I was wondering if you'd ever do a Final Fantasy IX Platinum walkthrough at some point in the future. Yes, I would love to cover Final Fantasy IX and Final Fantasy VIII. Even though when I first played Final Fantasy VIII back in the day, I did not like it because I was making so many comparisons to Final Fantasy VII. But you fast forward some 10 years later, and I played Final Fantasy VIII and loved it. Okay. Then of course 9 is a classic, man. If you've never played Final Fantasy 9, you owe it to yourself to go buy that game today and throw it in your console and get busy, because that game is fantastic. I know there's a few tricky trophies like the jump rope trophy and stuff like that. So I'll have to show you guys how to break stuff in that game and get all the trophies. But luckily, I think that trophy is at the very beginning of the game. So yeah, Final Fantasy IX ever wins a poll, I'm down to cover it. Do you believe in any religion? Well, I grew up in the United States, so you can pretty much guess how I grew up and what religion I was a part of. I'm not going to say if I'm affiliated with any religion now, or even anything about my political beliefs, because it's just too freaking polarizing, man. Everybody just gets crazy when they find out your religion or your political beliefs, man. It just causes so much division. So I'd rather not share that publicly. It's not that I'm trying to avoid your question. It's just, again, I'm not trying to divide our audience and divide our viewers. And these topics are extremely sensitive. And I'm finding out in recent weeks that so is trophy hunting. You know, a lot of trophy hunters, they're pretty, I don't want to say religious about their trophy profile, but you know, there's walls there, right? And just by sharing a difference of opinion with certain people, walls come up, you know, arguments are had and debates, and you know, you hope that it all ends well, but you're not trying to force that either. You're not trying to disrupt or divide, but it happens a lot of times when we share opinions about certain things. And like I said, political affiliations, religious beliefs, and like I said, even to some degree, trophy hunting, very polarizing. So I'm finding myself these days trying to avoid those conversations unless it's on a private level, like one-on-one. But in a public forum like this, I'd rather not say. What games do you like playing? Pretty much anything. I mean, anything. Now, again, this is from like a personal standpoint. I like playing online games on a personal level. Obviously, when it comes to the YouTube channel, I avoid them. But yeah, from a personal standpoint, I'll play just about anything, man. How old are you? I just turned 44, believe it or not. Are you going to do a guide for Red Dead Redemption 2? Again, I would absolutely do it if it didn't have those online trophies. But again, the production cycle that it would take to cover that game, and then knowing that it would be eventually deleted off the channel because the online trophy support would go away, I just can't see making the time investment. If they came out and said, hey, we're going to pull the online trophy support off and not penalize the player, I'd be down. And I know sometimes they'll do that if they do like a re-release of the game, right? They'll pull the online stuff out, then it's a possibility. But as it stands right now with the online trophy list, or the online trophies as part of that master list, I just don't think it would be a good thing for us to cover on the channel. How do you make guides? Tell us the process. Again, I have a series called the Breaking Series over on Patreon and YouTube memberships. It's right here, the Breaking Series. We've got 14 playlists in there now for various games: Demon Souls, Elden Ring. We're doing Rebirth right now. We got 52 or 54 episodes in that playlist, with about 20 plus more left. If you want to know all the details about each specific game, it's right here. I explain why I make certain alterations to the guide, why I'm not going to fight this boss first and I'd rather fight this one first, and all that stuff, guys, in detail for each game. But again, just overall, it's 5 stages of production: route, optimization, practice, record, and edit. How many trophies do you have and what's your PlayStation level? On my current profile, I have 80 platinums and my level is 351, and I'm 63% done with that particular level. Have you considered doing Xbox as well? You actually started out playing Xbox. You may be fairly new to the community, but I had an old YouTube channel that I started back in 2012, and I started out on Xbox because it was tougher to record gameplay on the PS3. So it was better to use the Xbox. So me and my roommate had an Xbox. That's how we did games back in the day. And I'm not opposed to going back to that. I mean, I have an Xbox right here in my closet. I have the original Xbox. I get confused, guys, on the Xboxes. It was a white one and it came with Gears of War, whatever that one is. I have that one in my closet. And I actually covered Cuphead back in the day when it was only on Xbox. I covered that on my old channel. So no, I'm not opposed to doing games on Xbox. It's just right now everything is hooked up to my PlayStation 5. I guess I should say that I don't have a new Xbox either, but I would get one. The main thing for me, man, is the exclusives. No disrespect to people on Xbox, but I just feel like that PlayStation has the better exclusives. Like I said, Cuphead back in the day was an exclusive, and I love that game. So of course I played it and covered it. But no, I'm not opposed to do Xbox games. We're not a PlayStation only channel, even though I know it seems that way. I just prefer to play on PlayStation. I like their system better than Xbox when it comes to trophies. I'm not a fan of the gamer score. I want to see the platinum. I know the gamer score and the platinum percentages are calculated differently. I'm just not a fan of their systems, to be honest. I don't like their UI, but I would go to that console if the game was good enough, 100%. And if we voted on it and it won, I would gladly cover it. I would buy the newest Xbox and cover it, no problem. So it's just out of convenience, and the fact that I like the trophy system better than the gamer score is why I tend to play more on PlayStation. Are you going to make a guide for Final Fantasy 15? If it wins a poll, we talked about this earlier, we have the preseason polls. If it gets through the Hateful Eight, goes to the X Games, and it wins, I'm happy to cover it. I know it doesn't have trophies, but are you going to do a Shadow of the Erdtree walkthrough? No, guys, I do not like to travel back and do any kind of content as it's related to a game, especially when it's DLC, because DLC doesn't have platinums, right? Now, I'm not opposed to doing DLC if I have like a Game of the Year edition. This is what we did for The Witcher. But even then, the DLC content has to make our character stronger or help us get trophies. And it did for The Witcher, right? We were able to go straight into the DLC, get that, what was it, like some kind of ice magic or something, ice spell, I forget what it was called. And it was really good for taking out mobs, clearing enemies, and we were able to level up a bit and stuff like that, and pop a bunch of those trophies in the first episode, which was key because that streamlined the rest of the trophy hunt. My point is that unless DLC helps our character become stronger, and I can cover it all when I cover the main campaign, I just don't go back to cover it. People have been screaming for years for me to cover, what is it, the Old Hunters DLC for Bloodborne. it's not in the cards, guys. It's more of a request. We need an Evil Within Platinum guide from you, King. I appreciate that. Yeah, like I said, we're going to be doing a better job with the polls moving forward. We may even have like a horror themed poll. I can't tell you when that's going to happen though. I will tell you that Dormouse03 has a guide for, I'm pretty sure, both of those games on her channel. She loves to cover the horror games on her channel, and she has guides very similar to mine. She'll walk you through it, answer your questions. She has commentary, stuff like that. So definitely check her out, man. I'll link it below underneath your question. And she's one of the few people I trust on YouTube to deliver or to take you guys through games. So Dormouse03's channel, she's got a bunch of other content too, man, if you want to check it out. Like I said, a lot of horror games, but she also covers other games as well. So if you don't want to wait for me to cover it, man, she'll take you through it. So check her out. When will you release the Star Wars Jedi Survivor Platinum Guide? Next season, okay? Next season. So if you guys go to the main channel, scroll down, you'll see the series called Next. That is our channel updates. So the next, pardon the pun, the next video that drops in that playlist will be for the next season. And I will have the schedule for when that guide is going to drop and how often it's going to drop. It'll all be in that video for you guys, okay? It's not exclusive to Patreon or YouTube. It's just they get it a little bit early, guys, because they support the channel financially, okay? That's only fair. If you do want to get it early, my friend, you can head over to Patreon or YouTube memberships and pledge, and that will give you access to it regardless of which tier you join, because like I said, it was part of our backlog and I covered it, so I just gave it to everybody over there at the same time. So if you want to get access to it today, it'll be a minimum of $5. You can join Division 12 either on YouTube or Patreon and you can get it, or you can join one of the other tiers and you will still get access to it. Okay, that's it, guys. That ends our 10K Q&A. Thank you guys so much for the support over the years, guys. Like we talked about in this Q&A, if you do want to see this channel survive over the next, going into 2026, really give it some thought, man. I'm not telling you guys to rush over there and just throw money. I don't want no sympathy pledges, but really just think about where you want our channel to be in 2026. Do you like the way things are set up now, where people that want to support can and people that can't don't have to, but everybody gets the chance to see the guides? Or would you rather the business model change and we move in a different direction where maybe I can only help the people who support me financially? Because that's pretty much where we're heading once we get into 2026. It's really up to you guys. I know we've touched on it quite a bit in this video, so I'm just making another declaration here. Really just give it some thought. I'm gonna give you guys until the end of the year next year to figure out what it is what you guys want to do. I already know what I want to do. I want to work. I want to make guides. I want to give you guys as much of my time as I can, and let's get some freaking platinums. Let's get some gamer score points. But again, I can only control what I do. Whatever you guys decide to do, I'm going to follow your lead and I'll make adjustments along the way. Thank you guys so much for the support. I will see you in the next one. Be good.